happy to be live with Sarah Leonard, who is going to start us off with an introduction to herself and her books.
Hi everyone, so I'm Sarah Leonard. I write under my initials S V Leonard, and I'm a crime author. My debut novel, The Islanders, was published last March, and my second novel, The Influences, was published this March. So I was trying to think how long ago it was, about 6 weeks ago, and I'm here to talk about it. I've got my second one here, and I guess a little bit about me. I live in London. I love reading, I love writing, and I guess my writing is quite inspired by modern twists on Agatha Christie is how I would sort of describe my writing.
So in your promo, you said that The Influences was based a little bit on a true crime.
So it's about the main character is a true crime blogger, and she wants to sort of be famous and well known for that. But at the beginning of each chapter, I have excerpts from her blog, and all of those were inspired by sort of true crimes. It's quite funny because when a friend of mine was reading it, she sent me a screenshot, I think of chapter 3, and she said, "Does this type of stuff just exist in your head?" It's a little snapshot from what was on Maggie's blog. And I said, "Oh no, this is not exactly true, but yeah, I was researching a lot of true crime to think about Maggie and the types of things she writes about on her blog."
Did you spend a lot of time looking at kind of influencers and bloggers and things when you were writing?
Yeah, I would say if you're sort of anybody who's on social media, you kind of can't get away from influencers and bloggers. But yes, for this one, I love YouTube. I love using Instagram. I love using Twitter. So you do get to see the types of people that are online. But yes, it's sort of, this gave me more of an excuse to be going and seeing what types of things people are famous for on Instagram, or TikTok, or YouTube. And I find it fascinating, sort of how people have built their careers on the internet, and how actually that's also changed over time. So the way somebody would become famous 20 years ago versus 10 years ago when it was YouTube, versus now where there's TikTok, how that's changed, and how people what we consider kind of talent and interesting, and what we want to look at has changed. So yes, I spent a lot of time sort of researching that for this book.
I have discovered TikTok recently and I can't stand it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, firstly, I don't really understand it. I don't know how it navigates. Occasionally I'll see videos that I think are funny, but it's I find it a very unusual medium.
But it seems to work for like book advertising.
Yes. No, I've seen, it's so funny when you go into a bookshop now and you see a sticker on it that says the TikTok sensation. And I remember I was talking to Waterstone's bookseller, and they were saying that sort of the bags are really popular. So people want the Waterstones bag, and what they do is their video is the bag, and then them taking out the books they bought one by one. I was like, okay, cool. If it sells books, then I'm not going to complain about that.
You're not tempted to venture into it yourself and make some book talk videos?
So I did one video, but no, I think it takes from the times I've tried, it takes a lot of time to make for a very short video. And I also don't think I quite know. Maybe if I talked to my younger cousins and I sort of said, what's the what sort of content should I be making, then maybe. But I find the deciding what to do, deciding what content to produce quite hard. So no, not in the moment. Maybe later, but not right now.
Sam's asked for you there. She says on research. She said there must be so much information to look at when you're researching. What were the things you had to disregard but would have liked to include?
Yeah, so my book isn't about, it's set in the world of influencers, but and to some extent it's about influencers, but it isn't about, it isn't purely about them and their careers. So I touch upon it, but I would really, I'd have loved to maybe do a deeper dive into into people, into sort of the psyche of someone and how it can, maybe fame could change you overnight. Because I remember reading a lot about, especially TikTok stars. They, it can be within a couple of months and they suddenly have hundreds of millions of followers and their lives are changed instantly. Sort of quite interested in that. And then also I find things around, again, I touch upon this a little bit, but marketing and how influencers are kind of selling products, but they're endorsing them, and how that kind of the sort of world around that, I find that really interesting. So yeah, there was loads of stories and real life things that happened that I'd have loved to find a way to work into the book, but I think it would have taken too many tangents if I had done that.
Are you working on book 3?
So I am, but actually I think I'm going to change direction a little bit. So yeah, I'm halfway through a book that's a bit about sort of a talent show, and it's slightly different. It's not quite so procedural. This book, like my first book, is very procedural. So the investigation, so someone gets murdered and the investigation starts. Whereas this one that I'm currently working on, somebody gets murdered in the beginning, but we don't know who. And then it goes back in time and we follow the story of the kind of young and up and coming talent, the older falling star, and then also the ruthless producer. So I'm about 40,000 words into that. I'm really enjoying writing it, but I've got a couple of other ideas that are bouncing around in my head. So I want to make sure that what I write next is, feels like that's kind of the right next step. So yes, I'm halfway through what I think might become book 3, but I've got a couple of other ideas that I also want to explore before I definitely say that this will be book 3.
So you got some hellos from Donna, Leslie Lloyd and Laura Hamilton. All said hello to you.
Hello, nice to see you. Thank you for joining. And please do ask questions.
I'm sure they will. They're bound to have questions. So are you ever tempted to delve into sort of writing more of a series?
So at the moment, yes, I think so, because I thoroughly enjoyed, I love reading series. So I really enjoy Anthony Horowitz's Hawthorne books. So the kind of word is murder, the sentence is death. I really, really enjoy those and having the same characters. And I really like Marion Todd's sort of D.I. Claire Mackay's series. So I do love reading series and I love watching television series, especially police ones. And I think there's probably something, you do get quite attached to your characters. So I remember loving writing Maggie. I thought she was a great character. So maybe, I think, if I could find the right character and the right setting and the right, if it was going to be any sort of series, I think it would be an amateur sleuth or a cozy crime. I don't think I would want to write. I love reading police procedurals, but I don't think I'd want to necessarily write one. But I like the idea of a cozy crime setting. I actually once, ages ago, had an idea for maybe for a children's book or a young adult book that was a high school detective or something, something like that kind of toes the line of like procedural series, but not being a pure police procedural.
Yeah, it's sometimes quite hard to launch kind of YA and
Yeah, I think so. And I read a little bit of it, but it's certainly not the bulk of what I read. I do. And I think actually, talking about series, whenever I read a series, so I absolutely loved, I don't know if you've read The Windsor Knot and the Three Dog Problem, where it was Queen Elizabeth II investigates. I loved that. And because I like, I think I quite like gentle crime stories. She says gentle crime, but something when it's a series, you know that your main character is going to be safe and you know you're going to come back and be able to see them. So it is, whenever I read a series, I think, oh, wouldn't it be great to write a series? But the idea for what mine would be, my brain seems to only think in standalones, at least at this moment in time.
Laura Hamilton's asked you a question. She wants to know, if you were to meet one of your characters for a meal, who would it be and why?
So it would have to be, so one of my characters in here is called Reese Rose, and he's a makeup artist, and he became famous doing sort of makeup tutorials on YouTube, and he's so over the top and really. He's got a bit of an edge to him, but he's also like, sweetie, darling, and he looks amazing, and he's so unlike anyone. Well, he's got similar characteristics to people I know in my life, but he's a real hammed up version. And I think if I had a meal with him, it would end up a meal and then drinks, and then it'd be a night out. And I think it'd be a real night to remember. So yeah, Reese Rose would definitely be who I would like to meet.
I think it'd be a very wild night out if you met Reese.
I think it would be a wild night out, and I think I'd be quite happy to let him lead me, because I think he'd be like, oh, there's another friend of mine is having a party here and a party there, and so I think he knows lots of people in great places, so it'd be a wild but very fun night out, and one that I'd never be able to make for myself.
So Sam wants to know, at what point when you're starting a new book do you get excited?
So I get really excited when I have an idea. So I have, when that idea comes to me of what I can, I think it's that honeymoon phase of, oh, I've just met this person, aren't they great? So that's when I get really excited, and when I'm planning it, and when I'm thinking about it, and equally when I'm especially writing those first few chapters, again, it feels very much like you're very much in love. But I think I feel that for the most part, for a good chunk of that first draft, although it can get quite daunting, I think, when you get to the middle and maybe you realize, oh my gosh, I've actually got to write this thing. Like, it sounded great in my head, I've planned it. So yeah, I get really, really excited at the beginning when I have that idea and when I'm starting to think about who the characters are. And then I definitely get other bursts of excitement when either I've got come up with a new idea, or as in a new idea for the plot, or when I get my my edit letter and I might think, okay, I know what to do. Gosh, this is really exciting. I can't wait. So I'm quite an enthusiastic, excited person for the most part anyway. So I generally feel excited like all the time about things. But yeah, when I get that idea, it's kind of like wanting to tell everybody about a new person that you've met and you're just in love with them.
So when we met you last year on your debut, you were back at home because of the pandemic.
Yes.
And you'd legendarily launched your video with like a picture of all your cuddly toys going to
Yes.
What where are you now, and what did you do for this publication day?
So I am now back in my flat in London. So I'm currently sitting in my kitchen. And for this publication day, I actually had a party. So I had a little launch party, nothing big, but I invited some friends, and my family came down, and my agent came along, as did my editor. And we had some drinks and we had some food, and it was so nice. I didn't want it to be a kind of, big massive thing where I get, I don't know how you do it, but like press or whatever, or none of that kind of stuff. I just wanted it to be, I didn't have a birthday party, so I'm gonna have a book launch party. And it was really, really nice. I signed all my friends' book copies, and I signed some copies for them, and did a little speech. And it was great, just in a pub. It was wonderful.
Nice. Have you got any like author events plans sort of in real life?
Well, I think I haven't. I mean, I was planning on going. I would really like to go to Harrogate, but I still work full time, and actually, as part of my full-time job, that it will be taking me to Ho Chi Minh. So I'll be moving to Vietnam in the later half of this year. So expect all of my books in future to be maybe set in Vietnam. So I won't be able. I haven't been able to commit to any author events, but I would, depending on dates, I'd absolutely love to go to Harrogate and meet some people. But I've been making a real effort to meet some authors in person anyway. So a couple of authors represented by my agent were in London, and we all went out for dinner. And I talk a lot to the writing world, and it's so nice to be connected. So I'm hoping to maybe be able to attend something this year.
Leslie, Lloyd wants to know what the day job is.
So I work for the Department for International Trade. So I cover Asia Pacific. So working with UK businesses who want to export to Asia. So that's why I will be moving to Asia. So that's what I do. I'm a civil servant.
It's nice. It'd be a bit tricky doing author interviews and things from Vietnam, though. I don't know what the time difference is.
Yeah, yes, but there are lots of authors that do it. I mean, I know I think Polly Phillips is based in Australia, and Ali Reynolds, who wrote Shiver, she is also based in. She is Australian. She's based in Australia, but when she does her author events, she has to either stay up really late or get up really early. So I think it comes sort of part of living in a different country to the UK. You just make it work.
And Leslie also wants to know if you're multilingual.
No, I speak a bit of French and I speak a little bit of Polish, but I don't speak Vietnamese, and I don't speak any Southeast Asian languages. I will hopefully learn a little bit, but no. I'm not quite that talented. I'd love to be able to speak. I think, when people ask you what if you had a superpower, what would it be? Mine would be to speak any language. I just think being able to speak multiple languages is fascinating. And I'd love to be able to do it.
So you pick a sensible one. Mine would 100% be able to be like the Human Torch.
A Human Torch?
Yeah, like the Human Torch from Fantastic Four. Can produce fire all over.
Oh, yes. No, that's cool. I just love, I think it's because I'm ultimately really nosy. So when I'm sitting on an aeroplane or on a bus and I hear people talking a different language, I want to know, are they talking about me? And if they are, I'm going to tell them off for talking about me.
You've been asked where your books are set, and why did you choose those locations?
So the first one is set in a villa in Greece, and I chose that setting because it is a sort of Love Island inspired murder mystery, and that's kind of where reality television shows are set. But it's locked rooms, so it's set on an island in Greece, and kind of it being an isolated remote island really played into what the sort of book is about. And then the influences is got two main sets. The first part is on a yacht leaving the Thames, And then when the body is discovered, the yacht returns to London. So it's set in London. And I did think for a while about whether I should keep the second one locked room and have it all taking place on the yacht. But it's quite a big yacht, and I thought, well, they'd have backup. They'd know how to get back to the UK, and it's just one murder. The murderer doesn't have plans to kill everybody on the yacht. So that's why I thought realistically, people would, and actually just, linked into your other question, Sam, about how difficult was it to write a locked room mystery. I think this is why I decided to not set the whole of the second book on a yacht. It's hard to, in the beginning, to really create that locked room element. I know a lot of writers might do it when it's like a ski chalet, or it's somewhere in the mountains and there's been a big avalanche or snowfall that keeps them in there, or on an island and there's no way out. But really getting that realistic reason of why it's locked room, I find quite challenging. But I think once you do that, it's okay. And then the other thing that's difficult about a locked room mystery, again, is, usually the killer is among them. And how do you do that without other people noticing? And kind of the psyche behind someone doing it in a locked room. It is ultimately much more believable that somebody murdered someone on the streets of London, or, at a party where everybody dispersed. But trying to think of all the believable reasons of why it was locked room in the first place, how you keep them in the room, I think is quite difficult. But I know that readers really love it, and I know I really love it. So it's worth the effort.
I was going to ask if you're a fan of locked room.
Yeah, I am. I really am. But I think I like to read them sort of infrequently. I couldn't read a locked room mystery sort of, one after the other. But when I read one, I really enjoy it. So I was just a few weeks ago, I finished, I think it was called A Stranger on Board. And it was about an army officer who's sent on a yacht when it's doing a journey, a repositioning kind of journey, and that's what makes it locked room. And I really, really enjoyed that. But I think I personally prefer procedural. I think because the ratcheting of tension that comes with the locked room sometimes I find a bit much. I like a much slower pace. Just following a police officer around doing their job is where I naturally go to. But when you get a good locked room, like that, I remember absolutely loving Lucy Foley's The Hunting Party. When you get a great locked room, it's very hard to put down.
I think probably one of my favourite locked room ones is Chris Speck's North Sea Tale.
Okay. What's that sort of setting?
It's set on a trawler in the Arctic.
Okay. Which makes sense. Like, it's understandable why people would be in that setting, like once you find good settings that are isolated, I think you're onto a real winner.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. And the other one I really like is Anne Holt's one. It's called 1222.
Okay.
It's set on the railway line between Oslo and Bergen in Norway.
Okay. That sounds creepy. I'm already thinking of it being creepy.
And they kind of get snowed in at like the highest point.
Right. Yeah, definitely creepy. It makes you not want to go on train journeys in the snow.
I have actually been on that train journey though.
Oh, have you? Pre-reading it or post-reading it?
I think I read it after because I knew it was somewhere I'd be.
Yeah. And so you were glad you weren't murdered or you got stuck in snow.
I would 100% go back on the train journey though.
Oh, would you?
I haven't read it, so it's it wouldn't put me off.
That's cool.
We got Donna Morfitt saying Morgan Green set one on an oil platform, and that was really good.
Yeah, I was just thinking of settings that, so somewhere where the isolation is just part of the job. I mean, look how successful Vigil was on BBC, set on a deep sea submarine. Somewhere where it makes sense that you're all And I think those settings are probably more interesting because they're not something that we think about on an every day. Like I don't. Now I know people that I know people that have gone to villas in Greece, but I don't know that many people that have spent time on an oil platform. So that's yeah, interesting.
And Donna's got a good question actually. Says, when you started writing, what was the one thing you look forward to doing, and has it happened yet?
Ooh, I think I looked forward to seeing my book in a bookshop. And well, when I first started writing, I actually wasn't even thinking that far ahead. I just had an idea and I really wanted to write it. And I do thoroughly enjoy the process of writing. But when I decided I wanted to get published, I think I'm someone who looks forward to kind of the goal just in front of them. So, you know, getting a literary agent, getting a book, seeing my book in a bookshop. So yes, those things have happened, but I've still got lots of other things that I'd love to see I'd love to see a poster of my book one day, you know, on a tube platform, so I can stand next to it like a sort of mad person and point and take pictures.
Have you already done that with your book in a bookshop?
Yeah, I've already done that with my book in a bookshop. Yeah, it's the obligatory author shot, I think, because writing, I think I said this maybe last time we were talking, but writing is not always a very visual. You know, you can't take behind the scenes set are just you in your pajamas at a laptop, you know. Although I have actually, I was bought a sort of typewriter keyboard, which I now take to coffee shops and write on, and that gets lots of love. People come over to me and they're like, "Oh my God, is that a typewriter?" And when I show them that it's a keyboard, they all get very excited. But usually, yeah, you have to take the bookshop picture, because writing otherwise is not. You can't have the kind of exciting behind the camera, behind the set, you know, behind the scenes sort of pics. So yeah, as soon as you see it in a bookshop, you're like, this is great content. This is the only exciting content I can create.
I'm imagining the behind the scenes pics are just like very tired looking authors with coffee mugs and
yeah
post-it notes everywhere.
exactly, and in their pajamas and slippers and hot water bottle or whatever it might be.
We've got some more locked room mystery recommendations coming in. So Leslie said her favourite is the Lamplighters, but they did use the Wives and Girlfriends on Land for some of that story. Who's up? Hi, Leslie. Leslie always has a good recommendation. And Laura Hamilton said she read one set in an Antarctic research station, which she definitely needs to tell me the title of, because that sounds really, really good.
And they were there for like 3 or 4 months. Wow.
That sounds like a good one, doesn't it? And there was a real story, wasn't there, where they had to like separate some scientists on a research station in Antarctica because one of them kept pulling the last pages out of all the books.
Ah, okay. That's interesting.
And they were fighting over it. What have you read recently that you've really enjoyed? So what have been your favourite reads of the year so far? I'm asking everyone this because I just want good recommendations.
So I'm reading at the moment. I'm sort of reading 2 books at the moment. Well, listening to one on Audible. So I'm listening to Reputation by Sarah Vaughan, which I'm really enjoying. And I'm reading currently The House of Heligan, which is Vicky Pattis, but it's under her historical fiction name, Victoria Hawthorne. I'm really enjoying that. I really enjoyed After Everything You Did by Steph Sowden. That's her debut. That came out, I think, at the beginning of April. And then another sort of book that I really enjoyed that isn't crime, it's completely different. It's called Stonebroke Heiress. And it was a kind of riches to rags story set in Liverpool by a sort of fellow Liverpudlian author, but because that's where I grew up, it was amazing reading a rom-com set in a city where you recognize the places that they went in the book. I read Simon Lelick's, what's it called? The Hiding Place. So I read that. It was a NetGalley one, that one. So I don't know if it's out yet, but I read that and absolutely loved it. It's a police procedural. Already mentioned the Windsor Knot, and that sort of the Queen Elizabeth II investigates. They are really fun, really fantastic. I like that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've been reading quite a lot actually, and I don't think I've read any, but I haven't read anything I didn't like this year. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah, you're doing really well if that's the case. I've read some good things, but I've also read some things that I wasn't as keen on.
Well, I think that's natural, and I also find sometimes there are certain books for certain moments, which is why when I'm maybe in a bit of a reading slump, I lean towards cozy crime, because I find that kind of like a warm bath. Whereas when I'm feeling more relaxed or energized, I can go for a book that needs a bit more of my attention.
You've been asked, and this is another good one by Sam. She said, "How do you manage each individual voice as you write? Does it come easily as the book progresses?"
Yeah, I think it does. I found that quite interesting. So in the one I'm writing at the moment, it's multi-point of view, and it's a young girl, an older woman, and a middle-aged woman, and an older man. And they character-wise are all quite different. So the younger girl, she wants to be a doctor. She doesn't want to enter this talent show, but her mum kind of forces her to. And she is really beautiful, but she doesn't like being beautiful because she gets lots of attention from it, and she doesn't like that. So her voice is quite like young and sparky and teenage. And then the producer is completely chaotic, like a horrible man, but in quite a fun way. He drinks too much, he smokes too much, he swears too much, and he's just a chaos of a person. And so those three voices came really easily. And I think it was the juxtaposition of them on the sort of in the story that made it easier. Whereas for my standalones, both of my standalones are female sort of protagonists, and trying to think about the differences between them. I mean, they are quite different people. My first one is quite earnest, but is just really like down on her luck. Whereas my second one, she is a bit odd, and she's a bit of an outsider, and she really wants to be involved with things. So she, her way of trying to be brought into the loop is maybe not how everybody else would behave. So yeah, I think it comes when you write it, but also their purposes. I find if you really know what's going on for them under the surface, that translates usually to how you write it on the page.
Good answer. So you're with Canelo at the moment. How many more books are you contracted to write with them?
So it was just the two. So my third is out of contract, the one that I was just talking about then, which I think does sound. It's an S V Leonard book. It's a kind of modern twist on a crime novel. But I've got a couple of other things that I'd like to write that might be quite different. And I don't want to necessarily rush into what I'm doing next. I've got some. I'm really enjoying writing this third book, but I've got a couple of other ideas that are quite different, and I want to give myself time to let them percolate before I decide sort of what I'm going to do next. So yeah, 2 books. So I'm footloose and fancy free at the moment.
Are you tempted to venture out out of the crime genre altogether, or?
So I've got an idea that is sort of crime. It has the kind of darkness of crime. I mean, oh gosh, I finished season 2 of Bridgerton and I was like, right, that's it. I want to write a steamy Regency romance. But actually, I mean, maybe I would actually quite like to try my hand at romance. I think I could have the voice for it. What I don't currently have is any plot ideas. So if anybody's got any steamy romance plots that they want written, hit me up.
There's an author in our group called Kelly Clayton, and she wrote a really good Regency romance / crime. Yeah, absolutely. Really? Every time I interview her, I beg her for like book 2.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check it out.
To write it. It's called Fortune's Hostage, and because I'm a massive fan of Bridgerton.
Okay, all right, that sounds exactly up my street. Yeah, and I've been having a bit of a Bridgerton hangover, so I really should be exploring what romance novels I can read to satisfy that.
It's got a satisfying edge of kind of a cozy crime as well.
Okay, I mean, after everything I've just said, that I love cozy crime and I love Bridgerton, I'm pretty sure this is you've sold this one. I'm gonna get it immediately.
It's a book. I think she wrote it as Julia Hardy. So
Julia Hardy. I'll check it out.
But yeah, absolutely superb, and she will hopefully, because I am becoming like the nagging super fan. So literally any time she's on her live interviews, I'm like, when is book 2?
That's the funny thing. I did an author interview a few weeks ago with a book club on Instagram, and all of the people were sort of saying, oh, what's book 3? And I sort of was pitching it then, and they were like, oh my gosh, that sounds great, can't wait to read it. And so I sort of think to myself, oh no, I've got to finish this one for them. But then sometimes when I don't know, I've always been someone who I have an idea and I get really attached to it, and then I write it, and I want something to happen with it. But the more I've chat to other authors, they'll sometimes write something and just think, no, I don't want to do anything with this now. And I want to get myself more into a space where I'm giving myself time to let ideas percolate. And that being said, I do think I am enjoying this one, and I do think people would like it. But it's hard when people ask you about what you're doing next, and I've already started something. You then sort of feel like you're committing to it, but equally, other ideas might come up that you want to explore. And it's that balance of keeping the fans happy, but also giving yourself the space to explore something different.
But I think exploring, as long as you're writing what makes you happy, you're probably going to keep your fans happy as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because most fans will give new things a try.
Yeah.
So you talked about meeting up with other authors and some of the advice they've given. Who are the authors that you've met up with, and who would you like to still meet up with before you head off to Vietnam?
Yeah, so authors I've met up with. So I've met up with Sarah Lawton, who wrote All the Little Things. She was also with Canelo. I've met her quite a few times actually, because she lives in London. And I've met up with Steph Souden, who wrote After Everything You Did with Canelo. Again, met her a few times because she lives quite close to where my parents live. So when I go to visit them, I'm like, should we go and grab dinner? And Mira Shah, she has written a women's psychological suspense novel. It hasn't come out yet, but I've met her, and I've met some of the other authors that are at my agency. So Vicky Pattis and Becca Day, her book The Girl Beyond the Gate came out. I think it's doing really, really well. It came out a few weeks ago. So yeah, I've met quite a few people. I'd still really like to meet. I chat a lot to Sophie Flynn and Liv Matthews. So Liv Matthews wrote The Prank and the Twins. The Twins was just a Richard and Judy book club pick. So I chat to them quite a lot. I'd love to meet them. And I'd love to meet Marion Todd. Her and I talk on Twitter, and She's so nice, and I love listening to her audiobooks because she reads them and she has such a gentle, calming voice that I'd love to meet her in person.
I've interviewed Marion.
She's so nice. I like her a lot.
Yeah, she's great. And Sam interviewed Liv Matthews
recently. Oh, really? Oh, I have to go back and watch it.
I remember because she very often, you know, when Sam's really enjoying a book because you just get messages as she's reading it.
Yeah.
And she was really enjoying The Twins.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. It's on my list.
Do you, when you're going to another country, because I know Vietnam's not like the first place you've lived abroad, do you go and sort of explore the literature of the country that you're moving to?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when I didn't read, I don't know very much about Vietnamese sort of authors, but actually quite interestingly, way before this job sort of became a thing, one of the authors I met in my debut class last year has based himself in Ho Chi Minh. So him and I chatted, and we did a little interview of each other around the time we were both debuting. So I'll go and meet him, and I'll have to ask him sort of what Vietnamese authors he's read. I've read, so I lived in Poland. I've read a couple of their things. I mean, Witcher was written by a Polish author, which I haven't read, but I absolutely loved the Netflix series. And then there was an author who won the Nobel Prize for Literature a few years ago, and she wrote a literary crime called "Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead." I think it's a William Blake quote. And that I loved. So I do like reading things in translation. I'm maybe not as dedicated as I should be. And I think what happens, especially when you enter the writing world, is you get sent things to read, and your friends are writing books. So all of those sort of take precedent. But yes, I think it's a really, really good question. And it's something I should definitely add to my to-do list, because it's an amazing thing to be able to do.
The Witcher series is well worth reading.
Is it? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, my uncle is very, very into fantasy, and so he's got them all and he's read them all. So I thoroughly enjoyed the series. So I will probably. I don't need any more. I've got too many books on my list at the moment. I don't need any more.
I'm very not into fantasy, but I did like the Witcher series.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's not my normal.
What was it about the Witcher series that kind of?
I think it was one of those where I watched the TV show, and then the book was really cheap in the works, the first one, and I was like, "Oh, I'll see what the book is like."
And you liked it?
Read every single book in the series.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's cool. Maybe I'll explore it.
I like to take a risk on books every now and again. Just saying. Sometimes if you try something you wouldn't normally read, it surprises you, and you can end up with.
Yeah, that's the one that I read, the Drive Your Ploughs Over the Bones of Your Dead. That was bought for me by my partner, because he is Polish, and that isn't something that I would usually pick up, because it was literary, really literary. And it was crime, but he bought it for me. So I was like, right, okay, well, I've got to read it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, I agree. Sometimes you just need, I need that impetus of somebody's bought it for me, or I've said I'll read it for a quote or whatever. But yeah, taking that risk, and it sort of then refreshes you, I think, when you come back to the other things that you typically read.
It does. Or you do like me and Sam do, and make your second job interviewing authors, and then you get to read all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be quite fun sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's a good job. So we've got book 3 coming out. How do you read your reviews when they come in?
So yes, I would have said, had you asked me this about 6 weeks ago, I'd have said yes, obsessively. But actually now it's been harder to keep a handle on. When it was just one, I used to always read it. I used to always check. But now it's two. It's kind of like more of an effort to go on Goodreads for both and Amazon for both. And I think that's a good thing. So I don't check them anymore. I do in the beginning. Like, it's really interesting to see what readers are thinking, and it's great to see when readers are loving them, and also some feedback, that maybe people didn't quite like so much. I think that's really helpful. But I certainly found for myself, and I think, say, for book 3, I would definitely want to temperature check to see what people are thinking. But beyond a certain point, I would stop. I find that the negative ones really affect me. Although maybe it's now that I'm sort of 6 weeks into having released my second book, I feel it a lot less strongly than I used to. For my first one, I'd look at every single one and it would impact my mood depending on what they'd said. But now I feel like I have a bit of distance.
Seems fair. Have you planned out who to play your characters in the movie of them? The books?
No, I haven't. So I haven't thought about it. I haven't thought about it for this one at all, actually. I mean, because I don't really, I describe my characters' appearances like to a point, but I'm quite open. I don't know. I quite like it when I'm not a casting sort of expert, but yeah, I know my Reese Rose, the one who I said I'd like to go for dinner with. He was inspired sort of by a real life YouTuber. It'd be really cool if someone like him came on board to play it. He might be a terrible actor, so who knows? But no, I actually haven't. I haven't thought about it for this one.
I would ask you.
It's a really boring answer, but
I'd ask you who the real life YouTuber was who inspired him, but I wouldn't know even if you told me.
Yeah, he's called James Charles, and his makeup and his fashion is completely wild. So, if he wanted to play himself, I'd absolutely allow it.
Well, the only makeup tutorial things or makeup tips I've ever seen have been from drag queen shows.
I mean, also great.
So Laura said some of the negative reviews do make you wonder about the reviewers. They can be ridiculous. She thinks Luca Veste and Steve Cavanagh had a slot on their podcast looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, and people do say that to me. Like, why do you care? Like, why do you care about like other people's opinion when you don't? Yeah, either the review is absolutely ridiculous, so why? But I don't know. I'm more in that space now. I certainly wasn't in the beginning, and I don't know whether this is why I've sort of stopped reading them quite so deeply, because I'm like really proud of book 2, and I got some, continue to get some really great reviews of people saying, I loved it. It was really fun. Because my first 2 books are not really serious sort of world-changing pieces of literature. They are fun books to read on holiday or in the summer or sort of whatever. But in the beginning, it didn't matter to me that the reviewer might be ridiculous. I was just like, well, their opinion matters more than mine. And I'm really happy with it, but actually they've said they're not. So I will take that on board. Whereas now, I think I'm now getting more into that space of, well, if the review is either feels like they've just it feels an extreme reaction, then I maybe try not to pay too much attention to it, especially if there's nothing constructive there. But it's hard to get to that place, or it was hard for me.
And I think all books are a really personal thing, aren't they? You know, you're gonna take something from a story that is personal to you, and sometimes a book can be wonderful. Like we were saying, if you're reading something out of your comfort zone, it can be the best book in the world, but if it's not your thing, then you're not going to be giving it like a rave review because
exactly. Yeah, no, that's true.
For you. So I read one in the holidays that I got asked to do a review of, and it started off with like loads of cars and guns, and it's like I just not for me. But as I got through the book and there was like lots of other things I really liked, I could sort of see why people would love it.
Yeah,
it wasn't a bad book, it just wasn't
for you. Yeah, no, exactly. And sometimes
in my review I could be constructive because I could see all the things that I liked, and that the bits that I didn't like could sort of be other things that other people would enjoy.
And I think that's why often I remember watching an author interview where they said that's where 3 stars can be the most constructive for other. Well, ultimately, reviews are not for me; they're for other readers. And I try to take that attitude. But that's where 3 stars can be really helpful because they'll highlight all the things that a reader did like about the book, and then maybe the things that they didn't, and it could be something constructive that I could take away, but it could be advice to another reader. Like, if you don't like locked room mysteries, you're not going to like this. If you like this, you might. So I think, that type of review is really helpful. But I've now got to the point where, especially for my first 2, I might read one if I get tagged in a review on Instagram or something, but last year I'd like actively seek them out, you know, sort of sadistically. I'd be wanting to find out, whereas now I feel like I've got a bit more sensible with what I read of the reviews. So if they're for me, if I'm tagged in it, then I'll look at it. But if it's on Goodreads or Amazon, I won't actively go and look for it.
Seems reasonable. Apparently Mark Billingham does panel at Bloody Scotland laughing at his crazy reviews, or crazy reviews in general.
Yeah, I know that at the beginning of Holly Seddon and Gillian McAllister's podcast, they do, or the kind of theme song is them. They read out their worst reviews that week or that month as a voiceover to the theme song, and that's quite funny.
I think that's some of the way of dealing with it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Just to have a good laugh.
Yeah.
So have you ever acted out a scene from one of your books just to see if it would work?
Oh, no, I haven't. No, I don't know. I mean, when I'm sitting thinking about what scene I'm writing, I might think how it will play out, and I certainly imagine it in my head. But I've never got my whole family involved to do a scene.
I see you missed out here because I really enjoyed. I'm going back to your first video you did with your books, and I'm imagining you acting out your scenes with like
with my teddies. Maybe I'll do that for my third. I'll get a couple of friends round and I'll say, right, we're gonna have to stage this so I can see what it looks like.
Victoria Dowd had a Lego house.
Yeah, I heard an interview with her and her kind of her murder board and her she was talking about all of her kind of Lego pieces. But no, I don't do it. I don't do it like that. Maybe I need to. Maybe it's something I need to start doing.
I think there's another behind the scenes shot that
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I need to be more creative with how I do my writing. Yeah.
And we've got about 4 minutes left. Sam's asked you our favourite author chat question, which is what your memorable moments as an author so far.
So definitely my my book launch. That was such a memorable moment, having lots of people there, and I imagine it how people feel sort of on their wedding day, when you're constantly saying hello to people. You feel like you chatted to everybody but nobody, and standing up and doing a little speech, sort of thanking everybody. So that was a really memorable. And then also seeing, you know, this book had a tandem collective read along, so people were reading it and giving their opinions as they were going along, and that was really wonderful. It's, you know, for me, it's a multiple memories, but being able to see people enjoying the book and giving you their opinion and taking the time to design a little kind of photograph to frame the book, that's always really nice. And at least I have kind of video evidence. And then also last year, you know, my book launch, so Kaz, you and I chatted on that day. That's really memorable, because it was the first time I'd ever done it. It was during lockdown, so it was a completely different kind of setup to this year. But seeing all the photographs of people who bought it coming in and sort of congratulating me and thanking me, that was really memorable and amazing. It's been, being an author is wonderful, and being able to engage with other writers and readers and reviewers is just, the bookish world is such an amazing thing to be part of. I feel very privileged to be involved, to be allowed in.
It is. It's excellent.
Yeah, it is. It's so nice.
Well, to be part of. We have 2 minutes left to show your book covers off. Give yourself a bit of advertising.
So this is the influences, and you can see the cover of The Islanders sort of just here. So The Islanders is sort of Agatha Christie meets reality television, and The Influencers is sort of Death on the Nile, but with influences, but sort of social media. So modern twist on crime.
Can people buy signed copies from you?
Yes, I can get some book plates. So yes, I can sign some book plates. I can sort that. I can sort that out if somebody wants to. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram under S V Leonard. So get in touch and I can sort that out for you. I'm also on the UK Crime Book Club, on there as Sarah Leonard.
Okay. And then all that's left to say is thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It was so nice. It was so nice to chat again.